Hey everyone, and welcome to Mini Scroll, the daily internet culture podcast bringing you the biggest stories from social media, the creator economy, and the digital space every Monday through Thursday and sometimes Fridays. My name is Annabelle, and I'm your Wednesday Mini Tech Scroll host and also the deputy editor of the youth digital media brand Centennial World. Welcome back to Mini Tech Scroll. We are back in the studio for today. I am very happy to be back, and I wanted to thank you all for being so kind about last week's episode, even though it was from home. Before we get into this week's stories, though, I actually have a book recommendation for you guys. I finally got around to reading Get Rich or Lie Trying, Ambition and Deceit in the New Influencer Economy by Simeon Brown. It was published back in 2022, so I am a little bit late to the game, but I thought this would be a great recommendation for the pod because if you like a lot of what we cover here at Mini Scroll and Infinite Scroll, I think you would find it a interesting read. It is a non-fiction book, but it talks about everything from plastic surgery to cryptocurrency to live streaming and kind of how so many social media users succumb to the capitalistic engine that drives social media these days in pursuit for influencerdom, where many end up lying to others and themselves about the process. Other than that, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. And if you want to support Centennial in other ways, feel free to check out the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. Okay, let's get into the stories now. The first story for today is the weekly US TikTok ban update that is honestly against my will, but it has been reported that TikTok is developing a new app for US-based users ahead of the potential sale. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the ban since I literally did a refresher of it last week since Trump shared that there is a potential buyer on the horizon, so definitely feel free to check out last week's Mini Tech Scroll if you are interested in that. But the update for this week is, according to reporting from The Information, quote, the company TikTok has developed a plan to launch the new TikTok app known internally as M2 to US app stores on September 5, according to two people with knowledge of the matter. So US TikTok users will seemingly have to download a new app to continue using the platform, but the current version apparently will be available until March next year. And for reference, there are reportedly around 170 million US-based TikTok users, so the prospect of all of them moving across is honestly rather unlikely, I'd say, but I'm sure a lot of them will. So, as I've mentioned before, the Trump administration has prolonged the TikTok ban from coming into force. The latest extension expires in mid-September, which is set to be a couple of weeks after the new app is set to launch, according to the current timeline that's been reported. Obviously, a lot is up in the air about the app itself, from questions around whether it will even happen to how it will operate and, of course, timelines. So while I acknowledge that we are largely operating on hypotheticals, this whole thing raises some really interesting questions. First off, it remains unclear if users outside the US will be able to download and use this new version of TikTok. And in a similar vein, we don't know if this new app will continue to show content from around the world, or it will only be users of that app, which is presumably going to be US-based content creators. I'm curious though, if you live in the US, let me know if you would rather to continue to get fed international content or you don't really care. I will say though, I think the prospect of having a US-specific TikTok is really interesting, and it kind of reminds me of China having its own TikTok equivalent being Douyin. Douyin doesn't show TikTok content, and TikTok doesn't show content from Douyin. So obviously this is a different political and cultural context, but I am wondering if this new app would follow a similar kind of format. Another thing I am curious about is how this TikTok-based app will play out when it comes to things like community guidelines and free speech, especially if they carry over from TikTok's existing guidelines. If the platform does end up being US only, I think it would allow for a lot more control and potentially suppression on the app. Obviously, if this is the case, it really limits the user experience when it comes to the free flow of communication and ideas. As someone who lives outside the US, but also is invested in US politics, culture, and society, since I literally did American studies at university, I will say I think It is fairly common knowledge that the US can be, not always, but it can be pretty insular when it comes to culture and just a general understanding of the world. So if this new app is restricted to US based content, I don't love those prospects necessarily. Another thing, sorry, I feel like I'm just going on a ramble, but while I don't think other countries have the capacity to be doing what the US is doing, I can't help but wonder if this is something that other countries would want to do, maybe out of national security fears or a desire to control the content that is shown on the platform. But with that, I'm wondering if this is something that we will see become more popular, like having different apps per country, as things like hacking and data theft and mining become key methods to gather information. Like I said, I don't think many countries would have the same power or capacity to do so, but it is an interesting trend that could be starting. And I guess my last question around the development of this kind of app is what it means for internet culture. Like I said, we don't have a lot of information about what this would look like, but internet culture is so US focused and US driven, and the US is a massive market. So having an isolated TikTok app could really change internet culture as we know it. And I think it puts a lot of international creators on the line because you can have creators who are based outside of the US who have a majority US audience because they are such a big market. I'm curious to see what that means for potential brand deals and how brands and other companies who are very online navigate these developments. Currently though, to finish this off, as I've said, it's all so up in the air, but it is definitely a development that is important and something we should take note of. The next story for today was actually suggested to us in a comment, and I've been seeing more and more discourse about it ever since then. But basically, I wanted to cover how there has been a seemingly dramatic rise in AI-generated racist slop on TikTok. Luckily, this isn't actually something I had seen on my For You page, which I'm honestly very grateful for, but I have seen many people talk about the kind of content recently. In fact, Media Matters, which is a nonprofit research center and kind of media watchdog, which is based in the United States, recently wrote a piece covering this issue. According to the piece's author, Abby Richards, many of these videos are created with Google's VO3, which is a text-to-video generator. As she writes, quote, "The publicly available AI generator currently has a limit of 8-second videos, and Google reportedly plans to integrate the video generator into YouTube Shorts. The videos that Media Matters has identified on TikTok all ran a maximum of 8 seconds long. They also had a VO label in the corner, used hashtags or captions, or had usernames related to VO3 or AI." Now, I don't feel like it's 100% necessary for me to give specific examples of what these TikToks entail because they are quite upsetting. I will say, though, that so much of this content is disgustingly racist, pulling from extremely harmful stereotypes and painful parts of history. And with that being said, it's obviously all very dehumanizing. According to the Media Matters report, there's also increasing numbers of discriminatory and just problematic content directed towards various ethnic minorities and other racial groups, specifically Asian, Latino, and Jewish people. Now, I did some searching and scrolling to see the types of content that is being circulated on the platform because, like I said, it's not something that was organic to my feed, which, like I said, I am grateful for and I believe is a green flag for my algorithm. I will say, though, that it was extremely easy to find. You could virtually search up VO3 AI on TikTok and these videos would come up. There were also no content warnings or restrictions on virtually anything, so that is clearly a horrific failure on behalf of the platform. I will also say that I think it's also a failure on behalf of the tools that many of these users are using, like VO3, that they should be even allowed to generate this sort of content. There definitely needs to be more restrictions on that. Unfortunately, so many of these videos had a lot of views and engagement. For example, one anti-Semitic AI generated clip I saw had around 1 million views and almost 100k likes. Also, I would like to add that the only disclaimer put forth by TikTok on a video that I saw was one AI generated video that was essentially poking fun at the Holocaust. A little window in the corner did pop up that read, quote, "Learn facts about the Holocaust," and that directed users to aboutholocaust.org. but that was literally the only disclaimer I saw when I was researching for this episode. So the commenter that prompted us to cover this story specifically mentioned the rise of harmful content against Black women, which is something that I also very quickly noticed. I came across so many videos that were also seemingly made by VO3 that fed into some of the most harmful stereotypes. And I didn't see many comments that even condemned this kind of content when I was scrolling through, which was really disappointing. Obviously, I can't speak to the experience of seeing this kind of content as a Black woman and how it would impact you personally, but I can only imagine how confronting and upsetting it would be to be seeing your likeness co-opted and then subsequently used to feed into really harmful tropes that would ultimately impact how you move through the world. So with that being said, I did want to include a couple of TikToks posted by various Black creators speaking to their opinions and experiences seeing this kind of content pop up on their For You page. The first one I saw was by TikTok user NeoSoulNea, and she said that she believes Black women in this scenario are being used as quote-unquote puppets, whether that be to support causes that they don't support or just to sow division in the Black community.
All right, I need y'all to tell me if I'm tripping or not. Y'all don't find it weird that the 92%, the Black women, said that we were going to sit back, not involve ourselves in any of this stuff going on because we did our part during the election. We're not going to overextend ourselves for people who did not care to vote with us. Y'all don't find it weird that all of a sudden we're starting to see like all these weird AI videos, either A, using our likeness to express support for different things that we are not in support of, that we didn't say we were in support of, or B, using our likeness to further degrade us by perpetuating harmful stereotypes. And I'm like, who is this for? I feel like they're just trying to use Black women as puppets. Like, if they can't willingly get us to be involved in this, they're going to figure out a way to put us in this against our will.
Another TikTok that I saw was describing how these TikToks are used to create a really harmful narrative against Black women.
Is it me or is somebody using AI characters to create a narrative about Black women? Take a look at this.
Back in my days, we wouldn't do these hairstyles.
You keep worrying about my hair because you don't got none over.
I had to stop it there because they're about to have the little girl cussing, which is not realistic. Now take a look at this next video.
You are the most ugliest woman I've ever seen.
Girl, shut your dusty expired.
Once again, I had to stop it because it was about to get profane. My question is, who's creating these caricatures, because that's what they are, of Black women? Some people may try to dismiss this as playful or just social media. I actually think that it's quite harmful. Why do Black women always have to be depicted as angry, as loud, as ignorant?
Obviously, there are so many issues with the fact that this kind of content is circulating online. I believe it is really important to talk about this for a number of reasons. Obviously, intersectional oppression and discrimination is something that is always important to bring up because obviously somehow so many white people can't seem to comprehend it. But aside from this, it's also important because it seems like this kind of discriminatory AI slop is not going to slow down because the platforms are literally doing virtually nothing to stop it. For example, this kind of content has been a major problem on Reels for a while now, and it is something that we actually covered in our AI slop deep dive. In that video, we made the point that platforms have done a really bad job at moderating this kind of content because these days, everything comes down to engagement. We all know how creators are rewarded for quantity and not quality, and obviously AI videos are just so easy to churn out, so the commodification of content strikes again, and for the worse. Also, I think another important factor to note with this story is how these discriminatory clips against various minority groups can be used as a form of propaganda, even though many users making this kind of content would claim that it's a joke, even though it's definitely not funny. I feel like the two creators I referenced earlier definitely touched on this, and we can see how AI content feeding into stereotypes only upholds dangerous narratives about various minority groups. And throughout history, this has been done time and time again. Obviously not through AI, but through other methods. Off the top of my head, I think cartoons are probably one of the best examples, whether they were anti-Black in the United States or anti-Semitic in Nazi Germany. It kind of serves the same function. And arguably, this AI-generated slop is the 2025 version. Anyway, I'm definitely curious to hear what you guys think about the proliferation of racist AI slop on social media platforms and what we can do to stop it. I thought it was a really important story to touch on, and I hope I covered everything and did it justice. And for our last story for today, this is a bit of a shorter one, but it is also about AI. Every story is either about the TikTok ban or AI these days. But basically, a band is going somewhat viral for claiming that Meta AI made up a fake controversy about them. The band, called Dutch Interior, posted a video to Reels and TikTok with the title text reading, quote, "AI lied about our band." The video now has accumulated 450k views on Reels and around 93k on TikTok at the time of recording. Basically, the band claims that after posting a video that was essentially about a sound guy, quote unquote, crashing out, the auto-populated search bar at the top of the video read, quote, "Dutch Interior Band Controversy." So they made a follow-up video responding to the generated search, and they included a screenshot of what Meta AI said the controversy was, and I'll read it for you now. Dutch Interior, an indie rock band from the Netherlands, was involved in a controversy surrounding their name and its alleged association with white supremacy. In 2020, the band announced that they would be changing their name due to concerns that it was being misinterpreted and linked to far-right ideologies. The band stated that their name was actually inspired by a phrase from a poem and had no connection to extremist views. Despite this, the controversy led to the band's music being removed from some streaming platforms and sparked wider debate about the importance of cultural sensitivity in the music industry. In the video, they claim none of this was true, even down to the fact that they are not from the Netherlands. I did do a quick search to see if I could find a Dutch interior band that was based there, but I couldn't really find anything. This was the only band that was coming up, and I saw no real connection to the Netherlands apart from the fact that Dutch as a language is spoken there. So I'll insert the band's explanation now as well, so you can hear it from the horse's mouth.
Meta AI invented a fake controversy about our band and then promoted it on our Instagram to thousands of people. We're a band called Dutch Interior, and we recently posted a reel about a sound guy crashing out on us during sound check. For some reason, Meta AI added a suggested search to the top of the comment section called Dutch Interior Controversy. When we noticed the link, we clicked on it, only to find that AI had invented a story about us being from the Netherlands, we're not, and how our name has ties to white supremacy. It's actually based on a series of paintings. The AI then went on to claim that our music was removed from streaming platforms because of this controversy. Again, none of this is true. We just want to know how this can be allowed. Our video got tens of thousands of views, which means thousands of people who have never heard of us could have been exposed to this misinformation. Now we're even hesitant about posting this. Who knows what the AI will make up in the comments of this video.
This video has sparked a lot of conversation, with many people talking about just how harmful this kind of auto-populated search function is. And we have also talked about this before, but mostly in the context of TikTok. Creators have long found fault with the search bar feature on TikTok, with many questioning its accuracy and even its utility and reliability. There have been numerous instances on TikTok of the search bar hallucinating context and starting to fuel rumors that ultimately led to virality. And what makes it so much worse is that many Gen Zs, including myself, use social media as a search engine these days. While I think this is probably more true for TikTok than it is Instagram, it feels so insidious that these platforms would lean into this function without what feels like any guardrails or checks and balances to make sure that they aren't spreading misinformation, especially because much of this AI-generated search and auto-population is meant to be a form of fact-checking. On top of this, the platforms are so secretive about how these AI search functions even work and how auto-populated search bars decide what pops up. Aside from this conversation though, I will say that many people are skeptical of the band and whether they are telling the truth about their experience. Some have left comments claiming that the whole story is fake and that they are sharing this video and making it up for clout. I will say, when I went to their profile to see for myself, the initial video was up but nothing populated in the search bar for me. This could be because my Instagram needs to be updated or because I'm based in Australia that there are different search results and functions. On top of this, when I searched up Dutch interior ban controversy for myself, the text that they shared in the video didn't come up for me. Aside from the possibility of this being a hoax, there is a possibility that things were changed on Meta's end to adjust the misinformation. Ultimately, though, I think it's fair to give the band the benefit of the doubt and assume they aren't lying, but even if they were, I think it has sparked a number of important conversations that we should be having around AI on social media and the power of these auto-populated search bars to spread misinformation. If it didn't happen to them, though, it definitely will and has happened to other creators and users on the platform. So I don't think it's harmful to be having these conversations. And at the end of the day, we all know that AI does tend to make up information or context from time to time. Anyway, that is everything from me today. I really hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Mini Tech Scroll. I'll see you next Wednesday, and Lauren will speak to you tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.